So, Prison Colin Encina Chuso was an international hit for Adriano Celentano in 1972. And the interesting thing about this record, which may also be the reason that you haven't heard it if you're an English speaker, is that it was not designed for an English-speaking audience. It was designed to sound to a non-English speaker as if he was singing in English. But in actual fact, the lyrics are intentionally complete gibberish. Now, this, for me, is a kind of good illustration of what people get wrong when they consider how they're going to use a large language model in their content strategy and in their content production. Because the AI does not understand the content of what it's creating. It is doing an impression of a content writer. It is not a content writer. It's a very good impression. You know, a lot of the time you'd have to be paying quite a lot of attention to tell the difference, but it doesn't understand what it's doing, and as a result of that, you have to allow for that in how you build it in. Now, I am admittedly very far from unbiased in this. I work with a team of 14 brilliant B2B copywriters who have all worked very hard to get the skills that they've got. So admittedly, I have a horse in this race. However, if AI can help us to do our job better, to work faster, to get more value out of the content that we're creating, do a better job for our clients, then of course I have to look into that. That's what I've been doing, and that's what I'm going to tell you about this morning. Also, I'd like to think that as the person that has to manage this lot and review all their content, I'm probably in a reasonable position to know what good content looks like. I promised far too much, so I'm going to talk really damn fast. The three AIs that I'll be talking about are two that you've almost certainly heard of, Chat GPT and Bard, which is by Google. Chat GPT 3.5, most of these ones are, and Jasper, which is designed to kind of give you on-brand content, and it's more designed for the copywriting space. Jasper also has this kind of cute thing where you can point it at a sample of copy and say, copy that, write like that style, which has mixed results in fairness, but it is an interesting feature. Cool, so there is far more detail here than I can tell you about in 20-25 minutes. But this will take you to a very, very long web page where you can read all of the writing samples that I will be talking about. And there'll be various QR codes where you can get more information. If you miss that, don't worry, it'll come around again at the end. But first, oh, go on.
It doesn't work on an angle, but I'm just going to keep going.
All right, cool.
Okay, we'll get it off.
Cool. But first, I asked AI to write me a joke. Chat GPT says, why did the B2B marketer go to the bakery? Because they heard they had some incredible ROIs in bread, guaranteed to make their conversion rates rise and keep their clients loafing for more. Yeah, so AI cannot write jokes, but can it write effective B2B marketing content? And this is what we're talking about. What does content need if it's going to actually work for you, rather than just, oh, this reads okay? Well, at Radix, we take because we will review each other's work, we take a quite objective approach. We have this hierarchy of competencies, which we've built into this checklist of tests, which you can totally steal and repurpose if you'd like to. Again, you'll have another chance to look at this QR code in a bit. The most basic fundamental level that everything is sort of built upon is accuracy. Because your content is No one's going to take it seriously if it's full of mistakes. So let's look at basic things like, are the grammar and spelling correct? So what I did to test this was I took, and in this, in these tests, I took quite a lot of the samples that we use in the B2B Marketing copywriting training sessions that we do, and we're doing one tomorrow. And so this is one that deliberately has loads and loads of mistakes in it. And I said, okay, AI, can you proof this? Chat GPT sort of did all right. It missed the fact that that hyphen should be a dash, bit inconsistent on capitalization. Bard also made a couple of mistakes. They picked a few things out. Bard weirdly then added a list of exactly the opposite of what it had actually done, which is strange. Jasper was a lot better, but it put in a exclamation mark. And as we know, exclamation marks are the death of good B2B content. But that's okay. The idea with AI and prompts is that they're iterative. So you give it a correction and it actions the corrections. I said, get rid of the exclamation mark. And it did. However, it then also took it upon itself to add a bunch of B2B cliches that I didn't ask it for, and it made up a load of stuff about the company that it was writing about that I hadn't asked it for, and it put the hyphen error back in, which was a bit weird. The other thing you need to sort of bear in mind is that AI, again, doesn't understand what it's looking at. It only knows what it sees, and it copies it. So if it sees a mistake that is commonly used, like this one, it can believe that that is correct if it sees it often enough. So, okay. The other element, the accuracy of your content, are the facts and figures in your content correct? You know, spoiler alert, the AI tells you itself that sometimes it won't be. Sometimes that's because the training data is out of date, and it tells you about that. But there's also the wonderful world of hallucinations. So in this, it looks accurate, right? That date is completely made up. It bears no relation to any appointment of Ant Postecoglou or of any manager at Tottenham. It just made it up. So, hi Joel. In a B2B context, how does this work? Well, I asked Jasper to come up with a lovely bio of our glorious leader. And it came up with this, which sort of sounds plausible, though I gather Joel does not play guitar. It just made this up. I like to think of Joel playing the guitar. Similarly, Chat GPT decides that Joel's degree is in marketing. Joel's degree is actually in urban planning from the University of Nottingham. It's up to you whether you consider that a prestigious university. So, but I asked it, well, okay, clearly you don't know who Joel is. Why did you write this? And this is the problem that people get into, the mistake they make. It didn't know that I wanted a real bio. It was doing an impression of somebody writing a bio with the kind of facts that a bio would include. And it filled those gaps by making stuff up. And this is the problem. It looks like it knows what it's doing. So when you think about your marketing teams, you have to think about, well, would they actually check this stuff if it looks like it's correct? In Chicago, they did a study with a group of students, and the more AI had been involved in writing something, the less the students were aware of the content. Like some of them hadn't even checked it at all. So really, knowing what you know about marketers, and let's be generous, how much pressure we're all under and how many jobs we all have, how accurately do you think people will check stuff? Now, other stuff that it needs if it's going to be effective at the middle level of this hierarchy. So you have this brilliant balance that all B2B content has, right? Where it has to be clear enough to be understood and be understood quickly, but it has to not sound like it's dumbed down. It has to speak to the real experience of the reader. Because it's quite important that, well, if I asked all of you about your audiences for the content that you create, I can guarantee all of you would go, oh, well, they're time poor. Like, there isn't a B2B decision maker invented yet that goes, oh yeah, they've got loads of spare time to read our content. Like, that's not a thing. So the first words of any content that you create are really, really important. Problem is, most B2B content doesn't really understand that, and they all start with things like, in today's fast-paced digital world. I mean, they all really, 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 really do that. And of course, AI learns from what it knows. So if you ask AI to write a B2B marketing blog, how does it start? Same thing. The other thing is readability. Partly from the point of view of, again, no one has time, but also just from the point of view of having authority. Like, we all have this inner bullshit filter, right? We all know, really, that if someone is talking to us in language that is more complicated than it needs to be, then they're covering something up and they're not that confident in what they're talking about. So I wanted to see if it could spot this. So I used another training sample. And I wanted to see, can it spot content that has undermined itself by being needlessly complex? Bard quite liked it. Said it's concise and clear. Chat GPT did see there was a problem, but then suggest restructuring the only sentence that actually did work. Jasper, to be fair, understood the assignment. There's another use case that you talk about. This all used to be in a different font. That's why it's all wrapped funny. Anyway, there's another use case where you can get complicated stuff and ask AI to simplify it for you. Like, AI is really good at summarizing stuff that's there. And this is much better than the content that I gave it. But that flesh reading score of 14.6, that's a percentage pretty much. It's out of 120. Like, that's a low score. It's still not very readable. You know, really in your B2B content, you should be aiming for 50 odd, although very few B2B brands actually achieve that. I don't have time to go into Flesh Kincaid and readability, but my colleague George wrote a brilliant blog about it. Suffice to say, you want a high reading E-score and a low grade level. Now this is where it got weird, because I asked it to aim for a specific Flesh Kincaid. I need to speed up. And it said it's 9.3. It's bloody not. Okay, that's weird. Well, how did you get to 9.3? It knows the formula, but it's a large language model. It can't do maths. It can't count. So this is doing an impression of somebody doing the maths. All these numbers are made up. Jasper did the same thing, as did Bard. Bard gave me a lovely table. All the numbers in this table are made up. None of them bear any relation to what it actually wrote. So again, it looks like it knows what it's doing, because it's doing a good impression of somebody who knows the answer, but it doesn't. Okay, what have you got for me, Jasper? Why did the B2B marketer break up with his girlfriend? Because she couldn't handle his constant lead generation. Have you ever been told a joke by a 3-year-old? Where they kind of know that they ask a question, then they say something, and people laugh. Like, they get the shape of it, but they don't get why it's funny. They just go, why did the chicken cross the road? Farts! Or something like that. And it's that kind of thing, because it understands the structure, but it doesn't understand the content. Now, obviously, part of that is because it has no human experience. I asked it, what are the hot topics on your minds right now, to see if it can understand what you care about? The rise of content marketing? Growth of social media? I mean, 10 years ago, maybe. And it doesn't really, because it's predictive text. It's predicting the next word, one word at a time. It doesn't understand the content. It looks plausible, but it's not right. So, wizardry, the pinnacle part, is where we talk about the stuff that makes people take action, the stuff that makes your content stand out. There's a couple of experiments we did. We put various levels of human and AI interaction to the test, all on the same very, very basic brief. And there's two things you need to know about these results. Number one, everybody that I've ever shown these results to, I haven't got time to go into them now, could tell you exactly which of the four were which. Not just spot the human and spot the machine. I mean, okay, that's a human writing from a machine outline. That's a human editing machine copy. Like, put them in the exact correct order. The other thing that you need to know that's anything more important is that every AI-influenced piece of copy made exactly the same points in pretty much the same order. If 3 different companies had created those pieces of copy, they would all now be out in the market saying the same thing. So it's really interesting to me when people go, well, I don't use it for the writing, I use it for idea generation. Because by definition, it can only build upon what's already there. You know, like I asked it for, 5 original blog topics. And these all look like perfectly reasonable things to write B2B blogs about, right? But you've read them all a million times before. None of this stuff is original. Although this use case, this is Tom Roach, who's VP of Strategy at Jellyfish. He's clearly an absolute genius. For his strat positioning work, he got AI to generate a bunch of suggestions and then went, well, those are the ones that have already been done. Let's put those to one side and do something else. I did find one way by accident to get it to do interesting things. I asked it for wild and unusual ideas, and it misunderstood the word wild to mean angry. And it came up with all these angry titles. I really want to read the B2B Marketing Spite List. And so you can force it outside its comfort zone, right? You can get it to do things that where you use its own naivety against it. But what did Bard say with the joke? Why did the B2B marketer get fired from the circus? He kept trying to sell the elephant a white paper. Yeah, that tracks. Cool. The other experiment that we did was basically a blog writing shootout between the 3 kinds of AI that we talked about and 2 versions of Jasper. It has this one-shot blog feature. We thought we'd give that a shot at it as well. And based upon everything that we'd learnt so far in this journey and what they told us they thought the prompts we would have to give them to get good content, we gave them a pretty detailed prompt for an 800-word blog post. Then I gave them to Katie Eddy, who is a senior copywriter at Radix, one of our best reviewers, to score them against our checklist. And they didn't do great. I think that would be fair. Chat GPT, we asked them to do statistics, to include the statistics, show your sources. And in Katie's own words, some of the statistics that it used were older than she was. Like it was quoting stats from the 90s. So it didn't score very well. Bard scored similarly lowly for different reasons. It missed the brief. It didn't really write a blog. It just wrote 2 long bullet point lists of advice. Jasper was better. This was the one with the long prompt. But there was no real logical reason to, the behind why it matters in the blog. There was no depth to the content. 11 out of 16 is much better. This is still in the territory where we would give it back to a copywriter to rewrite in its entirety. Jasper One Shot looked really promising. It was very detailed, but when you actually got into it, the structure was weird, the word choices were weird. It was the worst of the bunch. Here is the most important part, right? Because you hear about the content. The idea is that it can get you 80% of the way there, and then humans can just finish it off. And none of these, Katie, were Katie wouldn't dream of editing any of these into a publishable state. She'd start over with any of them. If you want to read the blogs, again, they're all on the secret webpage. If you've looked at the QR code already, it's the same one. So at the moment, as it stands now, AI, for me, can't write on its own. The element of value for the customer has to come from you, and the quality of the copy is hit and miss. In time, you might find it looks something like this. The more something has to stand out by the quality of its writing, I apologize for the text wrapping, it seems to have gone wrong, or the more something has to stand out for the originality of its ideas, the more you will need human involvement. But whatever you create, it needs to be really, really checked really closely by a person, because there will be lies in it, for sure. So if you are going to publish AI-created content, you need a structured way of doing it. This can really help, but if it's not this, you need to be structured and rigorous. Of course, there are loads of ways that you can use AI around the writing. You know, it can do summaries, it can do transcripts, it can do grammar checks, it can help you with personalization and atomization. You know, Perplexity is a really interesting one. It can do your research for you. Perplexity wrote a bio of Joel that is at least accurate. I don't think Joel would probably use that bio. It's not that well written. But the sources are correct and the information is correct, but you have to use the AI for the thing it was designed for. Again, for copywriting, Chat GPT is predictive text. And here's the thing that I kind of wanted to sort of leave you with. No one's flashed any times at me. Okay. No one's flashed times at me. I don't know if I haven't seen them yet. A year ago, Brian McCready and I stood on the Ignite stage to a packed audience. I mean, there were people sitting on the floor. And we talked about how to make your content distinctive by using creativity, how to create differentiation by doing stuff that's different. And now I'm talking to an audience about how to use computers to automate the process of making your content the same as everybody else's. And that's something that worries me, because AI will never be able to think. You will always need human input somewhere if you're going to have any value for your audience. Also, there are probably bigger fish to fry from your point of view as marketers. Like, what will your website look like? What will the role of your website be if the search engine results page goes away? If Google stops being a thing, do you have to move from SEO to AIO? Is it even worth you having a website at all at that point? What is your strategy? Because this is the guy that created Gmail, and he reckons that's 2 years away from the death of the search engine. There's more to worry about. So, I did promise to reveal that whether this blurb was written by a machine or written by a human. If you're able to raise your hands if you thought it was written by AI. Raise your hands if you thought it was written by a person. Okay. Spoiler alert, there are a lot of you here. So it was written by a person, specifically this one. Cool. So I had to get the end of my speech exactly right, so of course I asked Chat GPT to write it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, bit genderous, esteemed colleagues and all the brilliant minds gathered here at B2B Ignite 2023, I'd like to wrap up my speech with a little dose of humour, so without further ado, here's a joke to leave you with a smile. Why did the B2B salesperson bring a ladder to the negotiation? Because they wanted to reach new heights in closing deals, and they weren't afraid to climb their way to success. Thank you for your attention, and may your business endeavours be filled with endless laughter and prosperity. Thank you very much.
Told you, Taylor Swift, Harry Styles made that guy.
I'm older than that. I'm way older than that.
Anyway, listen, we've got time for a few questions. I'm sure there are lots of questions. So, Marco and I've got mics, you've got mouths. Who has got a question for this lovely man? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come to you and then we'll come to you as well in a second. All right, off you go. Tell us who you are and then use the mic to ask your question.
Hello, I'm Helen Kensit from Cogniclick. That was a really good talk.
Thank you.
Have you ever used one of the generative AI platforms to improve an idea that you've had? So you've written a long piece of copy and you've asked it to create a short version or a funnier version, or...
It certainly can't make it funnier, as I think we've showed, but not really. I have asked it to kind of comment on things and to suggest improvements, and to be honest, those suggestions were pretty hit and miss. I'm lucky that I work with a group of copywriters, but and they're much better at that, frankly, than AI is yet. If you don't have that luxury, some of the suggestions it could make for you would be worth looking at. But ultimately, you have to make your own decisions. You can't kind of trust it implicitly.
Yeah. I mean, I've used it quite a lot.
Nice.
And I've put in kind of long... I do a lot of sales.
Sure.
And I put in sort of long sales kind of pitches and emails and said, could you just make this a bit shorter? And actually it works really, really well for that.
Cool.
Not always.
Yeah.
Kind of 6 times out of 10.
And that's the thing.
Perhaps that opening line is a little bit better than what I could have put.
Yeah.
I haven't asked it to start from scratch as such.
Yes.
Create this pitch for me selling this particular product. But by starting that email and then going, well, is this good enough? Is this short enough? Is this, and actually asking it at that point is really, often very effective.
Great, and that's a really interesting point.
Sorry to interject. Let's move on the mic if we can, just because I know there's another question here.
Sure.
If we can come forward, Marco. Thank you for that. Over to you, please.
It's Paula from Inflection Group.
Hi.
And I just wanted, I've listened here this morning about AI and tech and B2B marketing, and now, AI and copywriting. And I just wanted to ask a question about where's intuition and sort of human contact. So we also hear about customer centricity, but how can that be achieved, I wonder, by automated copy? It seems...
Yeah. I mean, it's...
To ask you the question.
No, I think as I said, I think it's all, the value in it has to come from a human connecting with another human. Like, you can use the tools, as we said, to kind of help you with that and give you some guide rails. But any value has to come from human connection in anything that we do in marketing, whether it's, copywriting or anything else. I agree entirely.
I think, just to say, we've used Jasper in my organisation. My organisation, I should say, is not B2B. I have another job, because a job will kill me if I'm suggesting that B2B write copy using Jasper. And we use it for triple cooked blogs, right? So actually on its own, it doesn't. Humans tripling it through gets something out. But just to back up the point, I don't think it will not hit the human creativity that we are all here. It is artificial intelligence rather than pure intelligence. However, the one thing I would add to take away is, if you think about your content marketing stack as a pyramid, where I think it's interesting is at the bottom, the low-level stuff that has to be done may be where this stuff can help lend a hand. And David, I don't know whether you've got a view on that. The real talent, the wizardry, is at the top of the pyramid. That's humans.
Yeah, I think at the moment, the thing about that low-level stuff, it will get better, it will improve. But I think for us, at the moment, there's so much time that you have to put in checking everything that it says, because you don't know if it's pulled something from the source material or if it's just invented it.
Sometimes you do, actually, because mine did something on Jasper, and it's plain Jasper, and it genuinely had a paragraph from somebody else's website on there. Why? Because it had their name on that copy at the bottom of the blog.
Yeah.
And at company X, we do the da-da-da-da-da. So it is just regurgitating.
Yeah. And so sometimes it regurgitates stuff, it invents stuff, where it thinks it needs a fact, but it doesn't know the fact. It just makes it up. Because it's guessing what the next word is, one word at a time. That's what a large language model is. It's very, very smart predictive text. You know, it's predictive text that's been trained over billions of texts. You know, many lifetimes worth, or a normal Tuesday for my eldest daughter. But it is that, that's what it's doing.
Perfect. Listen, we're going to have to leave it there. Don't worry, other rooms have synced up time-wise, so you can leave, but you can't leave until you've given that man another round of applause.
Oh.
David McGuire, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers.